a Weber kettle, a drum smoker, and an offset smoker. What's the difference between them all? How do they work? Which one produces the best barbecue? And which one is best for you? All right, the Weber kettle. On the lid, we've got a vent, and on the newer models, you'll even find a temperature gauge. And as we take that off, we've got our cooking grate. We'll take that off, and underneath that we've got our charcoal baskets which sit on top of our charcoal grate, and then underneath we've got our ash pan and our bottom vent, which you can either have completely open, completely closed, or you can set it wherever in between. Now the old Weber kettles are very versatile. Right here is a classic roasting setup, so let's imagine we've got some red hot lump charcoal or briquettes in our charcoal baskets. You can put a drip tray in between them if you want, and then you'd put your cooking grate on, then you'd have your roast chicken, pork, lamb or beef, whatever you're roasting, in between the two charcoal baskets, and then you'd put your lid on and you'd have both your vents wide open, and that's your classic roasting setup. And then another hot and fast method I like to use, which I'll mainly use for chicken wings, is when you put your two charcoal baskets together in the middle of that charcoal grate, fill them with your red hot lump charcoal or briquettes, get your cooking grate on, and I'll typically use this setup for chicken wings, but there's so much more you can do with it. So for example, I'd line all of my chicken wings up around the outside of the charcoal baskets, and that way they'll cook hot and fast without burning because they're not directly over any of the charcoal. Then for your smoking setup, we'll take off our cooking grate and we'll remove our charcoal baskets. Now we'll set up what's called the snake method, which is perfect for any of your low and slow style cooking. So for this one, you want to use some briquettes and you want to stack them up in a domino style fashion. Now we're not going to build a full one because we're not cooking anything today, but ideally you want to build that around 3/4 of the way around your charcoal grate. Then you'd pour 10 to 15 red hot briquettes at the start of the snake, which is the way the briquettes are going to be falling. Then once it's set up and burning right, the snake method will just slowly burn through all of the briquettes, and it should last around 8 to 10, maybe even 12 hours. Now with the snake method, I've got heaps of videos where I'm using the snake method, setting it up and explaining it along the way. So make sure you have a browse of the channel if you did want to learn a bit more about the snake method. But as for the Weber kettle, I think it is a great barbecue for a beginner to start on because you can pick them up cheap secondhand. You could probably even borrow one off a family member or friend. You can smoke brisket, ribs, pork shoulders and everything else in them, but they are going to be quite challenging when it comes to fire management. But like anything, the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And there are lots of accessories for the Weber kettle that will make fire management easier, your setups easier, and then you can get things like rotisserie attachments, pizza oven attachments, and much more, which will make your Weber kettle even more versatile. And now we'll move on to the drum smoker. At the moment, this is my favorite smoker, and I find most people will move on to something like a drum or a Kamado after they've used a Weber kettle. And that's because as a stock unit, I find the drums and Kamados a little bit more versatile, but the main reason is the fire management. In my opinion, you won't find another smoker that's as close to set and forget without it being a pellet smoker. Once you've got a drum smoker dialed in, it's going to stay at the same temperature for the whole cook. I've run these things overnight and all day, and it's never let me down. And that's because the drum smokers are a fully sealed unit. It's got a really nice heavy duty seal on the lid, and the only way oxygen is getting in, which is how you're going to control your temperature, is through this intake vent here. So that's going to draw oxygen in through that intake vent, down through that pipe, through your charcoal or briquettes, through whatever you're cooking, and out the exhaust there. Now most drum smokers will have around the same size cooking grate as a Weber kettle. The difference is you get to use the whole cooking grate in a drum smoker. If you're cooking in a Weber kettle and you're using the snake method, you can't really be cooking anything directly over the burning part of the snake. But with the drum, you've got a nice big heat deflector so you can utilize the whole cooking grate. With this particular drum, you can actually double your cooking space. So if you've got 2 cooking grates, you can cook on this level and the level it was originally at. But as we take our heat deflector out, you'll see that we've got our charcoal basket, and then underneath that is our ash pan. So for a smoking setup, and again, you'll see that I've got heaps of videos where I use the drum smoker. All I'll do is I'll fill our charcoal basket up with briquettes, bury a firelighter in there, light it up, let the briquettes or lump charcoal catch light, then I'll shut the lid and control our temperature using the intake vent, and I'll leave our top vent completely open. Now with this drum smoker, you can take your charcoal basket out, you can put your heat deflector back in and put your charcoal basket back in on top of the heat deflector, and that way you can set it up as a charcoal grill. And this drum smoker also comes with 3 rods and 9 hooks, which means you could hang up to 9 racks of ribs, or you could do some split chickens or anything else you want to hang directly over charcoal. But like I said earlier, the main reason I find drum smokers are so popular and why it's my favorite smoker is because of the fire management. And they produce some really good barbecue as well, which is why you'll find most competition teams using a drum smoker. And now we'll move on to the one that's probably the most challenging to use but produces the best barbecue, the offset smoker. So as we open this up, you'll see this has got a nice big cooking surface. You can utilize most of this cooking space, but you do need to be careful when you get too close to the firebox, as things might start to burn or cook a lot quicker. So with an offset smoker, we'll open up our firebox, and basically you want to start a fire in there, and throughout the cook you're going to keep that fire going with log splits. And this is the reason offset smokers produce the best barbecue, because they are using real wood splits as opposed to lump charcoal or briquettes. And pretty much you'll control your temperature with the size of your fire, the side firebox door, or your side firebox vent. And again, I've got heaps of videos using an offset smoker and a few videos on offset smoker fire management as well. So basically you'll have a fire going in your firebox. That smoke and heat will travel through your cooking chamber, whatever you're cooking, and then out through the exhaust here. And if you really wanted to, you can set your offset smoker up as a charcoal grill. You can just pour some lump charcoal or briquettes on the grates underneath, and then just grill whatever you want to cook on these cooking grates on top. So in short, if you're a beginner, I always recommend starting with a Weber kettle. You'll learn a lot about fire management, and you'll be able to pick one up secondhand really cheap, or you'll even be able to borrow one. And when you feel you want to upgrade, or you want something that's a little bit easier to manage, look at something like a drum smoker, a Kamado, or if you want something even easier, maybe look at a pellet smoker. Or if you love playing with fire, you've got the time, and you want some really good tasting barbecue, maybe an offset's for you. All right, now we're going to end this video a little bit different, and we might do it for the next few videos. We might even do it for all of them if it's popular. But in my YouTube community, I put up a post letting everyone know I was filming this video, and I told them to ask any questions related to this video I'm filming. So what we'll do is we'll go through the questions and I'll answer as many as I can. So the first one is from If You Can't Join Them, and it asks a few questions actually. First one being, will you give them a clean before you start? The answer is yes. As you've seen in this video, the barbecues look quite clean compared to the dusty photo I put up in the community. Now the next question from If You Can't Join Them is, can you please discuss the time spent setting up each, including splitting wood if necessary, and how long they take to stabilize temp for an idea of total time taken, not just the cook time. Now, honestly, they all take roughly the same time to get up to temp, which is around 20 to 30 minutes. Then to stabilize your temperature in an offset, you really don't ever have a stable temperature, because each time you put a log on the fire, that temperature is going to spike or fluctuate. Then in a drum smoker, it's pretty much always within the first hour I've got my temperature nice and stable, and it can be very much the same in a Weber kettle in perfect conditions, but the weather and the wind, or if you're opening your lid too much in a Weber kettle, you're going to be spending a lot of time adjusting vents and stabilizing that temperature. And then the last one from If You Can't Join Them is around the same cut of meat on each barbecue. Now with a brisket, for example, you don't want any part of that brisket over the burning part of the snake, so you're going to have to rotate and adjust your cooking grate throughout the cook. With the drum, you can pretty much put it wherever on the cooking grate and it's going to be fine. Drums are going to have a little bit of a hot spot wherever the heat is escaping out of the exhaust, so normally I'll just put the point end up the hotter end, and then in the offset smoker I'll just face the point end towards the firebox. And then Laurie Sherwood asks, regards to the drum, when I have a temperature of say 275 Fahrenheit, I start putting the wood chunk, heat deflector, cooking grate and meat in at around 250 Fahrenheit. Should I wait until the wood catches alight before putting everything in place? Now that's really going to depend on the size of the wood chunk you're using, but the main thing is you just want to have that nice clean burning smoke before you put any meat on. Now the next question is from Dr. Abdul Quader. I hope I've pronounced that right. And it's regarding the Weber kettle. It has a built-in thermometer opposite to the outlet air vent. This gets not so accurate temperature readings throughout the cook. I know the solution is changing its position or getting a special thermometer, but is there a way to still use it? For example, an exchange chart, when it reads a certain temperature on the thermometer, it means that it's a certain temperature at meat level. I think the best way, and you've pretty much answered it, but it's going to be different for every barbecue, is pretty much making that exchange chart. So if you've got a temperature probe you can put next to your meat and cross-reference that temperature to your lid temperature. So for example, if your lid temperature is reading 350 Fahrenheit, but it's actually only 250 next to your meat, you're going to know that's pretty much the exchange. But every cook's going to be different. Where you put your charcoal might be different from one cook to another. But honestly, just to take out any guesswork, I'd just use the probe that's sitting next to the meat. Now the next one's from Sam Matt 83, and it asks, what is the correct number of smokers a man should own, Aaron? Now that's a hard one, and I don't think you can put a limit on it, but I'm going to say at least 12. Now the next question is from Aaron Templeton 1M Group, and it asks, is there no issue with dirty smoke in the drum when you have a charcoal basket full of charcoal but only light a few in the middle? Now the answer to that, and it's the same with the snake method, is no. When you've preheated all of those briquettes and charcoal during that process when you're bringing your barbecue up to temperature, that's preheating all of that charcoal or all of those briquettes to a hot enough temperature that they are going to continue to catch light without producing dirty smoke, especially if you're using good quality briquettes and charcoal. So if you are having trouble with that, see if you can get a better brand of lump charcoal or briquettes. Maybe make sure there's no moisture in whatever briquettes or lump charcoal you are using, and make sure you're giving your fire enough oxygen as well. Right, the next one is from Marty Williams, and it says, "Hello mate, I'm thinking about buying a specialist smoker here in the UK. I use my barbecue 3 to 4 times a week and love it. I use charcoal in the section of my barbecue as a smoker, but it's really difficult to control the heat. I would love your thoughts on which smoker you would recommend and why. Regards, Martin Williams." Now, hopefully what you've seen in this video has pushed you towards it already, but honestly, I'd just recommend a drum smoker. They're efficient, versatile, easy to use, and honestly, the fire management, it doesn't get much easier without it being a pellet smoker. Right, next up is from X Benjamanji, and it asks, "I want to know how much mess they make. I'm looking to start smoking and grilling out on the tiled patio, and I'm just renting." Honestly, they don't make much mess at all, but if you wanted that extra peace of mind, you can always get a barbecue mat to put underneath whatever barbecue you've got, and that'll catch any mess and keep the patio in good condition as well. Right, the next one is from Michelle Kinraid 221. "The briquettes I'm currently using in my Weber kettle run really hot compared to previous ones. I normally run a 2x1 snake for ribs, but I struggle to keep the temp down, so we are thinking of running just a double row with no upper layer. Might that help?" Yeah, you could definitely try that. You could try using a water pan, or you could just try shutting your vents down a little bit earlier when you're bringing your temperature up. It's all about trial and error because there's so many different brands of briquettes. If you're barbecuing a brisket compared to ribs, a brisket's going to absorb a lot more heat than what ribs are, and then the weather and wind are going to have a big impact on your fire management as well. All right, the next one is from Mr. Fillion. "I was literally just looking for a video from you like this 2 days ago. I have a Weber kettle that was given to me, but I've been looking to upgrade to something else, but I'm really not sure what each offers over the others. I'm keen on learning the versatility of each, but all how easy or difficult each are to clean up." All right, so hopefully I've been able to show you how versatile the drum is. Now the drums are pretty easy to clean as well. You can just lift everything out, brush it all into the oil catch underneath, and then clean that out. Then when it comes time to do a deep clean, again, you can just take everything out, take it to a spot where it's not gonna matter if the floor gets dirty, and just pressure wash it out. Right, and then from Jess F6649, "Flavor-wise, which one produces the best flavor? In my opinion, it's the offset." And Jess, I've got to agree with you there. All right, and then from James Watson, "That's an old Weber. I love it. Have you cooked on a newer model with the P-shaped lower vents and noticed any benefit in low temp control?" Cheers, mate. So that Weber I use is my birth year, so an L code from 1989. I was lucky enough to find that brand new in the box from a collector. But to answer your question, I haven't used the newer model ones with the P-shaped lower vents, so I don't really have an answer to your question, sorry. All right, and then from Glenn Schneider, "Hey mate, I believe there's a new Bronco drum with a door for access to the fire basket in America. I was wondering when we could see one in Australia." Right, so I've been told they are coming October 2025, so stay tuned for that and keep an eye out on my socials and Oklahoma Joe's Australia. The next one is from Simo2488, and it basically asks if a Traeger is going to compare flavor-wise to something like a drum or a Weber. Now, honestly, they do produce a pretty good flavor. It's going to be a lot more subtle than a drum or a Weber, but some of these newer pellet smokers come out with like super smoke functions, so they do get that stronger smoke flavor into whatever you're barbecuing. Honestly, in my opinion, the average person really isn't going to be able to tell if something's been smoked in a Traeger, a drum, or a Weber. They might notice if you're comparing a Traeger to an offset brisket, but even then, the Traegers are a good unit and they definitely produce some good barbecue. Right, the next one is from Paul Mercer 5431. "Hey Aaron, learned a lot from what you do. Thank you. With regards to the Bronco Pro, I've seen them in the shop and talked to the fellas about them. They were talking 12 hours on charcoal and up to 18 hours on briquettes, yet easy and consistent to manage. I'm struggling to get my head around if you light it in the center and as the fire burns, it's going to get a bigger front to it as it circles burning out. It's not like a snake in a kettle. How are they easy to keep consistent? Long-winded question, sorry, cheers." Well, yeah, pretty much like I've shown in the video, fill it up with briquettes, put a fire lighter in the middle, let your briquettes catch light, shut your lid, open your vents, bring it up to temperature, and then you'll control your temperature with that intake vent, and then that fire is just going to slowly burn throughout that pile of briquettes throughout the cook. And yes, with the Bronco Pro, I've had briquettes in there and we've got like 20 hours out of it before. Right, I think that's all the questions we'll do for this video. I'll see how this one goes, and then maybe in the next videos, if this is popular, we'll do a few more in the next video. So stay tuned in the YouTube community if you want to know what video I'm doing next, and if you want to ask any questions regarding it. And to all the unanswered questions, I'll reply to them all in the YouTube community tab. And if anyone's got any new questions, ask them in the comments below on this video, and I'll be sure to reply to them as well. But for now, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you've subscribed to our channel so you don't miss our next videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.